So to get started, this presentation session is to go over kind of generally, I'm about to say generically, that's not quite right. Generally kind of the expectations for the accessibility training course, and we'll focus on the checklist for faculty, and just kind of go over how it is meant to help apply what's in the course. Any feedback is helpful because it will be faculty using it. So if there's anything I'm not seeing from your perspective, I'm more than happy to modify it and make it as usable as possible. Angela. All right, so just really quickly, accessibility training course. Right now, the base of it is from TBR and has added into it the panorama training from TBR. So most of it's from them. The hope is to build as we go. The checklist I added because a lot of times we, in offering training, it feels like, hey, this is all the skills, but how do what process can I use to kind of get started? So that is the hope for the checklist. I will switch back and forth between the checklist and showing items in the course. If I'm going too fast, pause me. If there are questions, pause me. My hope is to get through this overview pretty quickly to leave time for questions. And then if we finish early, you have more of your day back. So I'll go ahead and jump into the checklist. So in case, actually I will find it in the course where it's not zoomed in really quick. In case y'all haven't gotten started, in the Introduction to Digital Accessibility, the first file is Faculty Quick Start Guide. And this is what it looks like overall. Has several blocks to use as a checklist to kind of get started and jump into accessibility work. And I'll go back over here. All right, so the first block and the first step is to find the panorama score in your course or courses. And so in each one of you that you teach in the course site, and I'll just show instead of walking through the directions here, you will go to, in your course, so in the course navigation, activities, and then you choose panorama. And I was wondering if how I'm logged in would cause a problem. All right, so let me get out of student mode really quick. I was wanting to show the course how y'all would see it, but I think it's more important. Show the panorama score. Okay. So panorama score for the course is in panorama, or by clicking panorama, and you can see your course report. And one of the biggest numbers, or the first places to look, is the overall accessibility score. Then you can also see other stats like how many files processed, etc. You can click through and see kind of how many types of files you have in a course. And then scrolling down to the bottom will let you know any issues. A really quick note, the TBR, or a quick note on the score. TBR has shared with us their expectation across the board of institutions, credit, and TCAT. The expectation is to get all courses to 90% in Panorama, and the scoring model has become stricter. And has been adjusted at ChattState based on the requirements. So if in the past you've seen a higher score and you see it lower, it doesn't mean that you've necessarily, and you haven't added anything extra, it doesn't mean you've done anything. It's just that the scoring is stricter to bring us closer to compliance with a manual check. And then you can use Panorama to help you remediate files that need remediation. And that can be, again, scrolling to the bottom of the course and seeing what your lowest scores are, clicking in on them, clicking the accessibility report, and then fixing the issues in browser, in eLearn, or where you can't, fixing them externally wherever you created them, and then re-uploading. So I'll exit out of this. And then to show in content really quick. For example, me as the instructor here, I could scroll through instead of looking at the kind of dashboard area and see at a glance, or tabbing through which documents are being viewed as more accessible. If I'm interested in individual files, I can click in and see their scores. It's a lot easier in the report area, but it's definitely good to know that you can access scores in the course content as well. All right, I will go back to the checklist. So that first step is to find your panorama score and make a note of it. And I probably skip forward to 2 as well, since everything's connected. So in the content area of your course, you can also see the accessibility score for each piece of content, which I showed you. And you can use that feedback to start remediating files. I do want to preface with a automated checker isn't perfect. It's not going to find everything. It does need a person that, and that's why we have training, to make sure that there aren't anything additional, or making sure that, like, hey, is this false positive? But with the stricter criteria, Panorama is a helpful place to start, and is definitely progress. So focus on the progress. And we may not be where we want to be right now, but if you're here right now, you're making progress, and thank you. So are you a developer would be another question for a course. If yes, it's your responsibility to create and choose materials for your course that are accessible. So that would mean, like, be open to feedback from students and fellow faculty if the content isn't accessible, being proactive when you're choosing it to ask the questions, is this accessible? And if you're not a developer, make sure that any additional materials that you're adding to a course is accessible. And a note kind of on the report end, and kind of a higher level than just looking at the scores for your course. Overall reports for all active courses, for example, can be exported from Panorama and can be used to see, like, okay, this course has several sections, and seeing a little bit of different score for each course. And it can be kind of like okay, here's our progress towards being comfortable with accessibility. All right, so course development contract. Was your course developed through academic resources through contract? If yes, they create as accessible as possible. And if you have questions, reach out to your course developer. And then OER and ALR content referenced in this checklist isn't talking about just free resources like videos that you find online that you can add to your course that aren't necessarily OER. We're talking about OER and being Creative Commons, public domain, and probably is free, but may not necessarily be free, but is open for use. And then you're using it based on the rights that the creator is giving you to use it. So understanding that OER content and ALR content that you may add to your course still need to ask about accessibility, because while it's open for individuals to access and use, that doesn't mean it's necessarily accessible to all users, as we're talking about it in context of the deadline that's coming in April. So just kind of being aware of asking those questions. All right, video content that you're adding to your courses. If you created it or chose it from YouTube or another platform, does that video have accurate captions? And as it stands right now, our understanding is auto-generated does not count as accessible. And so those captions need to be proofed and as accurate as possible. And I know that on YouTube, you don't have access to adjusting those items. So understanding that, okay, as I'm picking a video, let's pick the video that has the most accessible captions that gets across what you need. or looking at solutions like, for example, there's a free tool called Amara that puts an overlay over videos, because kind of going back to copyright, like if it's not Creative Commons and you don't have the right to kind of pull it down and manipulate it, there are tools that you can use to, if you really, really want to use a video, make the video more accessible. All right, do videos have sufficient descriptions for important visuals in the recording? So this goes back to audio descriptions, and you definitely have more control of this piece if you are creating your own videos, because as you're creating them, you can be as descriptive as possible for the students, for what they need to get out of your video. So just being mindful, because if you don't add those descriptions as you're talking in the voiceover, those may need to be added after the fact, and that's a lot harder. So just kind of working those into the voiceover. All right, UJ Video, on the subject of video, is a tool that Academic Resources has adopted that everyone in eLearn has access to. And I'll go ahead and go back. It's the same maker of Panorama. So if you go to activities again in your course navigation and you go all the way to the bottom, UG Video, and then after you click on that link, you should have access to it. I think you actually have to access it to be part of it, but everyone should be able to. And from asking the question, that should be students and faculty can access it. And you can add videos that you've created or that you have the rights to add in here. It starts auto captioning, and then you can adjust for accessibility in this platform. So you don't necessarily have to use YouTube. Unless YouTube captioning has changed recently, it's a lot harder to caption in YouTube because it doesn't start when it auto-generates as having sentence case. So YouTube would be a lot easier place to start. All right. And reach out to Academic Resources if you need help with the product. So, audio content questions. Have you used the audio player built into eLearn? This audio player is referenced in the Academic Resources eLearn Guide PDF. And a question of, if you're using it, have you corrected the captions or transcript for it? So you're able to load audio into it, and then should auto generate a transcript / captions for it, and then you can adjust from there. So it's nice to have an accessible player that you know is accessible and gives you a space to adjust and not have to start from scratch on a transcript. All right, so documents and files. Panorama, we talked about in 1 and 2, can help you remediate common items found in documents. And there's also an upgraded accessibility checker in the HTML file editor in eLearn because of it, so I'll show this really quick. All right, so let's say just so I don't mess up anything, create a file. The upgraded accessibility checker in the HTML editor is the little speedometer, and it is called, if the tooltip will come up, HTML Accessibility Report Score 100%. It's more robust than the built-in one that was originally in eLearn, and it can walk you through. Okay, and then there is also a document hub. So this goes more for staff and faculty, but anyone can. I'll go into the main page of eLearn. Can access Panorama and the document hub, and that includes students. So if you log into eLearn, students, faculty, staff can click on Panorama, go to the document hub, and add in documents kind of overall that you want to check. So if there are documents outside of your course and you kind of want to get a feel for, okay, what does the accessibility of these documents look like? You can make folders and organize and throw them into the folder, and Panorama will, one, score, and two, allow you to fix things, a lot of things inside of the Doc Hub. So it can be a resource for making your documents more accessible, that you're not having to do all of it in Word. So for example, let's see. Okay, I'm in a different account than I normally am when I review things, so I don't think there's, I think these are just, I don't think these have any actual files in them. Let's see if I can upload something real quick. Let's see. So as I load it, see that it's not finished yet, since it doesn't have one of the icons, but once it does, you can get feedback. Oh, it's already done. Heck yeah. And they can let me know what I might be missing here, which there's always room for improvement, and I can add the title. A lot of times when you export to a PDF, even if you've set up in your authoring tool, in this case it was InDesign, even if you set up the title, for some reason it doesn't always export into the PDF, so you may have to update that. And I thought I did, but I didn't, so I can fix that issue from here, which is awesome, and make it more accessible. Back to the quick start. Equations and graphs. So for math in particular, this area will need to be updated, but just kind of the original version. Are you using accessible math? So MathML, MathJax. The graphs have accessible alt text and identifying any items that don't have a solution necessarily. So just kind of to get it, faculty thinking about what they might need to be looking at for accessibility. Additional training. If you're not comfortable with accessibility, the accessibility training is out now. I need to update this because it was created before everything was released. So there are additional trainings. If for some reason in the accessibility training, the resources that are there aren't necessarily clicking, there are TBR trainings online that Amy Nephew from TBR offers monthly, and also Section 508 training that kind of breaks, like for example, Word is broken down into specific how-tos, like by tool. So if that kind of fits your learning style more, those are available. Not required. And actually, before I move on, because I feel like I'll talk about it, but I may not, or I may forget before we end. The biggest thing to focus on, especially if you've been doing accessibility for years, in this training, the resources are provided to you to help you succeed on the quizzes. If you've been doing this forever and feel comfortable with it, take the quizzes. If you already, the biggest thing is proving that you're comfortable with it. So these resources are here to help, but you're not required to go through additional content, and you're not required to, if you already feel comfortable, you don't have to go through it. There's always more to learn. There may be nuggets in there that you might not have known. So still, I'm not telling you not to go through it, but I'm just saying this, if you've been doing this for a while, like, why do I have to do this again? Focus on the quizzes. Third-party content. So is there third-party content in your course? So that question would be, are you assigning a textbook from a publisher? Basically anything that you didn't create that doesn't fall into the OER category. This could even be kind of going back to the videos from YouTube. Is there third-party content in it? Actually, no. not videos from YouTube. This would be textbooks, publisher, platforms, and different items. If yes, if you do have that in your course, has accessibility documentation been collected for it? And there is an accessibility documentation module in the course. And then as a addition to 12 and 13 go together, if you find that you do need to collect documentation, this is kind of an abridged version of the items that you need for accessibility to reach out to vendors for documentation. So that would be the template to reach out and request documentation. And then the forms are different items that you'd need to send as attachments with the email on that initial. And then basically a quick checklist on what are you trying to get the vendor to send you. So that's VPAT, CR form. That VPAT would be, in theory, filled out by the company ahead of time if they have accessibility in mind. The CR form is for a company to tell you about their weaknesses and what they're planning to do with it. So if anything is not supported or partially supported, we're asking the vendor to, hey, what do you plan to do with this? Are there any workarounds? Trying to see if there's progress over time. Sending the EPUB checklist if applicable, like for a digital textbook or something, but if it's a platform that an ebook is not involved, you don't need to send the EPUB checklist. Accessibility statements, that falls more into the OER section of or module of the course. And then section 508 documentation. Don't generally always receive this, and it's not a requirement, but just something that you could receive. So that's the checklist. Talk a little bit about the accessibility training. I know we're getting close. I think we're getting close. Do y'all have any questions based on what I've talked about? I know it's kind of a deluge of information. And it doesn't have to be all positive. It definitely be a, hey, this is just any feedback is helpful or questions are helpful.
Hey, it's Michael Largent.
Hi, Michael.
So I teach graphic design, and 99% of my material is visual.
Yes.
A lot of PDFs. I've got graduating student portfolios going back to 2017 for our graduating students to take a look at. Every single one of those is a 0. So what's the best tact on doing 16-page folios for 50 students, maybe 60 students?
And did you say that these are kind of for other students to look through the work that's been done before to kind of get an idea? I
Yes.
will reach out to Amy Nephew. I talked to her tomorrow about math anyway. I'll add that question in just so I'm not leading you astray, since that's a lot.
Yeah.
Is that your biggest concern? Those files?
Let's see. I've got 3 courses, one with 162 files, one with 105 files, and another with 134 files. And I've got scores of 33, 32, and 43. So
Okay.
that's kind of concerning.
Fair. Would you be interested in us scheduling a time to look at kind of the
Yes.
state of things? Okay. I have a link in my email that you can book a time that works for you. I can send you after this kind of an email so you have that. And then we
Okay.
can talk soon if that helps.
That will help a lot,
Awesome.
because that's a bit terrifying.
Fair. And we'll do our best to give a solution.
All right.
I'll do my
Thank
best
you.
to help. Thank you. And Angela, Lisa, do y'all have any questions? Again, I know this is a lot to look at. And it's okay if not. Like,
I personally don't at this moment.
okay.
I'm still kind of just going through the online modules, so I thank you.
That's fair, and thank you for going through them. And if you have any questions after this, in the meantime, feel free to reach out.
I do.
Okay, yeah,
in
go ahead.
in Allied Health, we're kind of in the same boat that Michael's in. We are image heavy, picture heavy. You know, we can't take students into our programs who are visually impaired, who have disabilities. They have to be able to see, they have to be able to hear, they have to be able to lift. So, you know, I just looked at one of my courses and I'm at 28%. And so I'm kind of in the same boat.
Would you also be willing to schedule a time with me so we can kind of look more in depth? It's
Sure,
easier for me
you know,
to
it
look.
may be best to reach out to Dr. Harris. You may want to come and just talk to our division program directors
Okay.
to try to give us, and we meet every other Tuesday.
Okay. When is the next one?
Well, we meet tomorrow, but that may be
Okay.
too quick. So you may just want to reach out to her,
Okay.
and that way you could talk to the group of us
Okay.
to kind of hear the situation that we're in and maybe give us some best direction,
That's fair. And
because it is overwhelming.
it is. And I feel like there are a lot of questions that a lot of times um, I think people feel like they might get in trouble asking. And it's just we'll work through it and kind of see what's kind of barriers and what's coming up as what is this. So I think that would be a good idea. I am more
Right.
than happy to reach
In
out.
our situation, I may ask you a question that 12 other people may ask you,
And that's
and
okay.
you can address it one time rather than 12 or 13.
That is fair. Held a because math department reached out specifically for a training, and it kind of was more of, okay, here was the accessibility or the training for math offered by TBR. What were your questions from it? Address them. And it's going to be more of a conversation with Amy from TBR. So I can reach out, and it may end up being something more like that, where take the questions, and if I can't answer it today, set up another meeting with Amy, like I'm going to do tomorrow, and ask the questions and ask for solutions and see kind of where we're at.
Okay.
Thank you
That
for the
sounds
suggestion.
that sounds great.
Thank you. So it sounds like if y'all are good.
Hey, Adrian, I
Yeah,
have a quick
yes.
question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I was curious about, like, I was looking at Amy's training last week
Yes.
for the accessibility report that's integrated into Microsoft. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, the you have Word open and you run the accessibility checker in it.
Yes.
Yes.
And so she had mentioned that it wasn't always accurate. And I was just curious, like, is that the same case with Panorama? Like, are there some things that Panorama misses, or is Panorama a little bit more better?
Valid question. So it kind of goes back to that caveat of manual checks is not perfection. And just because it says it's perfectly accessible doesn't mean, or just because it's 100% doesn't mean it's perfectly functional for someone. I think that Panorama is very helpful. I can't speak to if it's more accurate or not. But that's why a manual check goes hand in hand with the automated check to kind of, it takes kind of knowing it as well. And I feel like that's probably what she was referencing. Does that make sense?
It does, yes, for sure.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks.
No problem. And as everybody trains and gets more comfortable with it over time, hopefully manual checks will be more comfortable for everyone. But know that we're not there yet, and that's okay. And if somebody is, or if others are there yet, awesome. But we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for progress, right? So, any more questions? And it's okay if they're thought of afterwards. It sounds like we might have more time left because did this pretty fast. So if y'all are good, I hope y'all have a good rest of this Monday. It looks pretty outside. I don't know if it's warm.
Getting there.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian.
Thank y'all.